So you're thinking about making a long-term move to Northern Cyprus. Fantastic choice, but there's always that one big piece of paperwork that can seem kind of daunting, the residence permit. Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that whole process and give you a super clear step-by-step guide to make it happen. All right, here's our game plan. First, we're going to nail down the terminology so you know exactly what you're applying for. Then we'll get into who's eligible and the two main ways people do it. After that, it's all about the practical stuff, the exact documents you need, the step-by-step application, and we'll finish up by tackling some of the most common questions people have. First things first, let's talk about a small, but trust me, a really crucial detail that catches so many people off guard right from the beginning. Turns out, what you call this thing really matters. Okay, this is a really important little secret. You'll hear everyone, and I mean everyone, call it a VNJ. But officially, it's just a permission for long-term residence. So why is this tiny difference a big deal? Well, a formal residence permit often needs to be reported back to your home country. But since this is technically just permission to stay, you might not have to. It's a nuance for sure, but one with potentially huge implications. So who actually gets to apply for one of these? The great news is the system is way more flexible than you might think and covers a whole lot of different people. Yeah, you heard that right. Believe it or not, there are 17 different official reasons you can apply. We're talking about everything you'd expect, like joining family, but also some really specific ones for like athletes, filmmakers, and even yacht owners. But look, let's be realistic. Even with all those options, the huge majority of people take one of these three paths. For this explainer, we're going to zero in on the two big ones for non-students, getting your permit because you own property or proving you have a high enough income. Okay, let's put these two main routes head-to-head. Honestly, which one you choose usually boils down to your personal finances and what your long-term vision for life in Northern Cyprus looks like. So here's the difference in a nutshell. The property path is, well, it's about owning property. It's tied to a physical asset you have here. The high-income path, on the other hand, is what renters usually use, and it's all about showing you have enough cash in the bank to live comfortably without needing a local job. And you can see right there, the length of the permit you can get is different too. And this is the real kicker. The financial bar for the high-income route is significantly higher. We're talking 3 times more money sitting in your bank account compared to what they ask for from property owners. This is probably the number one thing that makes the decision for people. All right, you've picked your path. Awesome. Now for the, let's call it the less fun part, the paperwork. Let's go through exactly what you need to gather. The good news is the list is almost identical for both. Everyone needs their passport, a bank statement, and a certificate from the local muxtar, who's kind of like your neighborhood's official representative. The only thing that's different is your proof of where you live. It's either your property contract or your notarized rental agreement. Simple as that. Okay, you've got your folder stuffed with all the right papers. So what happens next? Let's walk through the actual application process, which is a mix of online work and a couple of in-person steps. So the whole thing kicks off online. You go to the government portal, create an account, and upload scans of all your documents. Then the system will give you what they call a rendezvous, which is just an appointment at the police station to show them all your original papers. After that, you've got the mandatory medical tests, you pay the fee, and boom, your permit shows up digitally right in your online account. Now listen up, because this is super, super important. Attention to detail here is everything. The online system is not forgiving. One tiny mistake, one missing document, one wrong date, and your application can be flat out denied. And that means you have to start the entire process all over again. No joke. All right, let's wrap this up by hitting a few of the big questions that always pop up. Getting these details right can be the difference between success and a whole lot of frustration. So a question I hear all the time is, how long is the permit actually good for? Can you just apply for a 2-year one right away? So you're looking at permits for 6, 12, or 24 months. Now, which one you get really depends on your situation. For instance, if you own property, you've got a much better shot at getting that full 2-year permit. If you're on the high-income path, it's more likely they'll start you off with 6 or 12 months. Okay, but what about those medical tests? This is a huge source of anxiety for people, and honestly, for good reason. The government is very, very clear about the results. And the answer here is brutally simple. You fail, you're denied, period. The test looks for specific infectious diseases, and a positive result means an automatic refusal. There are absolutely no exceptions. It doesn't matter if you own a mansion or have $1 million in the bank, this rule is ironclad. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's this. Doing this process yourself is totally realistic. Lots of people do it. But, and this is a big but, there is zero room for error. You have to follow the instructions to the letter. Which brings us to the final question, and this one is really for you. Now that you have this roadmap, are you going to tackle the process yourself, knowing every detail has to be perfect? Or is the peace of mind that comes from having a professional guide you through it worth the cost? That's a call only you can make.